Welcome back to the Republic of Arsenal podcast. This is the first episode of 2021. We did it. We made it. We survived the absolute craziness that was 2020. A year of mixed emotion. And as Arsenal fans, we got to witness the early stages of the Arteta reign. We've seen an inexperienced coach come in, try pick up the pieces of what was left behind by Unai Emery. We had a global pandemic, which resulted in us, having to hide away from the outside world, locked up in our houses. We couldn't see family, friends, couldn't go to work as normal, go about your day-to-day lives, unless, of course, your normal was working from home. And they even took our football away. So challenging times in 2020, to say the least. So today's episode, going to take just a brief look at the 2020 season. Going to look towards the January transfer window and sort of hopes for 2021. I'd like to think that being an Arsenal fan has hardened me up. It's equipped me to better cope with moments of upset, tragedy, despair. We've suffered some dark times over the years as fans. We've had little glimmers of hope thrown our way, in the form of FA Cup wins, little teasers, little signs that the better days might not be as far away as they might look or feel. 2020 was absolutely no different in that sense. The team was pretty stop-start. We managed a few results, a couple of performances that made us dream, give us a bit of hope. We managed to win 2-0 at the Emirates against Man United, which was to be new manager Mikel Arteta's first win as Arsenal boss. So we finally beaten a top six team. Right after that, we managed a 1-0 against a well-organised Marcelo Bielsa Leeds team, who would eventually, of course, gain promotion to the Premier League for the first time in 15 years. So happy days. We had a new look Arsenal side under Mikel Arteta, playing better football than we'd seen previous. Following on from the previous start that we had there, in between the shutdown, due to COVID-19, the pandemic, it was all positive up till that point. Project Restart, no fans allowed inside the stadium. We played another 23 fixtures in the season between the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the Europa League. We ended up winning 13 games. We drew 5 and we lost 5. So it wasn't unbelievable, but at the same time, wasn't terrible. We did end up crashing out with the Europa League at the hands of Olympiacos, which I guess was to be Arteta's first real disappointment, you could say. We should have had the beating of them. We were so close to going through, only to see a late goal from El Arabi in the final minute of extra time sent us crashing out. Our league form was only good enough to see us grab 8th place in the table. So everything rested basically on the FA Cup in terms of European qualification, and maybe just to somewhat plaster over the cracks of what was a disappointing campaign. We did manage to lift the FA Cup, and all credit to Arteta. He set his team up effectively. He got performances out of many players that Unai Emery was unable to get the same performances from. We were looking solid defensively. We had Aubameyang scoring for fun. And you know what? It was probably the most difficult setup you could have put a new coach into. If you imagine, you're a first-time coach at a club like Arsenal with the expectation of our fan base, which, let's be fair, we can be difficult at the best of times. You inherit a squad of high earners, big egos, and underperformers. This is a club that slowly but steadily has been on a decline for a couple of seasons. Oh, and there's a worldwide pandemic going on. Also, did I mention the Premier League came to a halt after it was Arteta himself who tested positive for COVID. So look, he had all that going on, and I mean, like, that's a lot to think about in your first couple of months. He went on to get us an eighth place finish, and given the downward trajectory of the team under Emery, eighth place was probably as good as you could have hoped for, in all honesty. And look, he brought us an FA Cup victory, beat Man City and Chelsea along the way. Take into account also, Edu had only just joined the club as a technical director back in July 2019. So he's pretty inexperienced himself in this role. He worked at Corinthians and for the Brazil national side, but this is his first role in Europe. You've also at this point got Raul Sanyehi at the club overseeing transfer dealings, and we all know how that one eventually ends. Raul and the club mutually, in inverted commas, agreed to part ways, which comes as pretty suspicious considering the owner Stan Kroenke hired a guy to check the Arsenal books, and suddenly Raul's leaving. Shake hands, thanks very much, see you later. Yeah, look, everyone could see there's something going on there. Arsenal formed a very close bond with agent Kia Jarabchin. We start seeing deals being made for his clients, and let's be fair, I don't think you could say any of those deals were made with Arsenal's best interests being accounted for. If David Luiz fails to impress last season, manages to get himself a contract extension. Cedric Suarez taken on loan from Southampton, despite being injured and unavailable to play, and probably not at the required quality. And then he somehow manages himself a permanent contract for the new season. A deal for Willian being talked about when his Chelsea contract is up in the summer, and that did in fact go ahead. We gave him a year more than any other club, Chelsea included, were willing to give him, plus a bumper pay packet. So definitely, I feel that Raul had his own pockets in mind when making these deals happen. This is another reason why I'm willing to cut Arteta a little bit more slack for maybe another two or so transfer windows, because I don't feel that he's had much overall say in transfer deals to date. And it sort of feels as though the influence behind the scenes were making most of the calls. Could have been a case of Arteta being told, look, this guy's available. He's a client of my friend Kia. There you go. Whether you want him or not, he's yours. So look, coming into the beginning of a new season, we saw Arteta promoted from coach to manager, which at the time it seemed like a positive thing from the club. There was a big announcement made about it, and I felt like, there you go. There's a reward for all the good work you've done in your first couple of months. In hindsight, that was probably the worst decision the club could have made. Sanyehi goes, Husfami, the so-called contract guru, he goes. A lot of extra responsibility on Arteta's shoulders, and again, not just was he in his within his first year as an Arsenal coach, he's now been made full manager. Much more extra responsibility. It'd be one thing if the club had a structure in place with experienced people that he could at least learn from, but we literally have Arteta, Edu, and Vinay Venkatesham at the club. So it's a mad decision, really, to have handed him the reins so early and nobody around to guide him. Yeah, I'm not going to get into what's gone on this season too much, because we're all living it at the moment. We've all seen the ups and downs already, and mostly the downs. We did see out the year with back-to-back wins and the emergence of some very good young players like Smith Rowe, but Bukayo Saka is stepping up and he's looking like a real senior figure already, even at the age of 19. Martinelli back from injury, so a couple of positives. I want to try leave 2020 on as much of a positive note as I can without dragging up too many of where it's gone wrong. Look, Arteta, he's faced an incredibly difficult time so early in his Arsenal career. He's already had people call for his head, understandably so. I know this is a results-driven business, and results haven't been great, so a manager's going to come under that kind of pressure. As I said, I try to look at the bigger picture with these things. Sometimes the performances of players and managers can be largely influenced by what goes on around them. And there's always plenty going on at Arsenal as a club away from the pitch. So look, I'm going to look at the January transfer window coming up. What, in my opinion, would make for a good transfer window? I think first and foremost, the squad, it needs to be trimmed, which is so much easier said than done. We all know the names that probably should be heading out the door, and I'm full sure Arteta knows them as well and has been working on it. But let's take, say, a Kolasinac, for example. He's off on a 6 month loan deal back to where we got him, Schalke. He's supposedly taking a pay cut to go back to play regular football. And like, let's be fair, like I commend him for that. That he isn't happy just to sit around and keep earning money. He wants to go play football. Like, fair play to the guy. With the pandemic going on, we're back in a lockdown again. This thing is just it's still going and going. I'm not sure if clubs are in a position to commit to buying players. Financially, we don't know what state the market is in. We're probably going to see a lot of these loan deals where we are starting to see it become a much more regular thing. And look, the way we've seen transfers in the past, especially Premier League clubs, I don't know if the money's going to be the same, like with the crazy transfer fees. And to be fair, maybe it needed something like this because some of the fees were just insane. But look, you've got to also take into consideration some of the wages that some of our players are on. Like, how do you get rid of them? Kolasinac is one player, and like I said, he was willing to take a pay cut. Will Socrates do the same? He must be on about 80 to 100 grand a week, I'd imagine. Who's going to pay him that money? And at the age he's at, he hasn't played all season. So how do you convince a guy to take a pay cut to leave when he could stay for another few months, continue earning good money, and then he can leave on a free at the end of the season, get a nice signing on fee elsewhere, which is probably going to make up for the bit of a drop in wages he's inevitably going to take. We all know about Ozil, his supposed love for the club. Look, with Ozil, I don't doubt that he cares about Arsenal. Maybe, yeah, he cares about the fans or whatever. But like, he's what, 31 now? I'd like to think he'd have a bit more ambition about him. I mean, he's won a lot in his career. He's a World Cup winner, and that he's hardly kicked the ball really in the past few seasons. Yeah, he's on 350 grand a week. But if you love the club the way you say you do, I mean, just leave. Like, you're not a part of the plans. Leave, free up some wages, free up a spot in the squad. Like, do you really love Arsenal, or do you love earning 350 grand a week and just sitting around watching us play and tweeting about the matches? Like, come on. So yeah, ideally, what I'd like to see Socrates and Mustafi go. Both are out of contract at the end of the season. Both are on stupid money. Even let them go on a free, because the wages we'll save, that's almost like a small fee in itself. Ozil, yeah, we know he's not going anywhere until the end of the season. But yeah, I would ideally like to see him move on. I don't think I don't think he's a good influence to have around the squad. I'll be honest, I don't think any of the players in the first team that aren't registered to play, or the guys who intend on leaving in the summer anyway, I don't think it's helpful to have them around the squad. Like, they can only damage team morale because they know that they're going. So it's got to be hard to continue having passion to see us do well when you're not going to be a part of that future. I personally, I'd look for a way, just move them on any way you can. Just get rid. I consider selling Chambers. It's not that I don't think he's decent. He's okay, but with the injuries he suffered, yeah, I'd just like to see him moved on if we can get a fee. Granit Xhaka and El Neni, I'd strongly consider sales if someone came in for them. Again, just because they've had their time. We know what they are. We know what they offer. What they offer is limited at best. We can most definitely upgrade. Kolasinac, as I said, he's gone to Schalke. He would have been a player I'd have moved on. Um, but they've already done that, so the club's actually got a bit of business done early, which is great to see. I would hope that Benfica might rekindle a bit of interest in David Luiz. That was a move that was potentially talked about at the end of last season. Again, it could have just been the agent talking, trying to force Arsenal into making an offer, which we took the bait on that one. So you never know. Hopefully, something might come up again. He's another player that's going to be gone at the end of the season anyway. Willian, a loan or a sale live on the table. He's been really disappointing, but not just that. He's both on and off the field has been quite negative. He just doesn't look interested. It's not happening for him on the pitch, and there's so much talk about calling for Arteta to be sacked. Himself and David Luiz pushing for it, and yeah, you don't need that around the club. Other than that, I'd like to see Joe Willock, William Saliba, and Reece Nelson, three young players. I'd like to see the three of them get a loan move. They need to play. Absolutely vital for their development that they get play time. So definitely get them out on loan if you can. Even Eddie Nketiah, I'd send him out on loan, but this would depend an awful lot on the Balogun contract situation. So if we can convince Balogun to sign a new deal, which I'm not very confident of, the signs to me, kind of seem as though he may be out the door, because I guess if you were trying to convince a guy to stay and show him that he's going to be part of your plans, he would have been included in the squad the last couple of weeks, which he hasn't been. But if for some reason we do get him to sign a deal, maybe loan Nketiah out and give Balogun Eddie's spot in the team as the backup striker. Unless, of course, Balogun signs the deal and it's been agreed that he's going to go out on loan, and then you hang on to Eddie, one or the other. A lot has been said about needing to sell one and keep one, but I don't see why we can't keep both. Both young strikers, neither ready to be first choice. Lacazette and Aubameyang are going to be gone within the next 2-3 seasons. So, we could be mad to move them on. We're going to need to rebuild in that area in the very near future. And hopefully the two lads will understand, and be willing to do their times, for when that day arrives. So other than that, a couple more names I would like to see sold, but I'm more focusing on what I feel will be a strong window for us rather than be unrealistic and name 12 or 13 players I'd like to see sold, because that just can't happen in one window. So I mentioned a couple of sales, a couple of loans. Now, what I'd like to see in terms of additions. So the obvious one, creative midfielder, of course. Buendia, maybe. Stats look good. Seen him a handful of times. I'm not going to lie and pretend I sit around watching every Norwich game. But a fee of 14 million being mentioned. Nowadays, that kind of money seems pretty minimal in terms of risk associated with the deal. I think it'll give him a bit more time to settle and find his feet, because, if you look at the Pepe deal, never going to hear the end of the 72 million, no matter what he does. It's always going to be 72 million. He does something good, well, he'd want to do that because he cost 70 million. He does something bad. Can't believe this guy cost us 72 million. So it's true that the fee attached with the signing can alter the expectations, which is completely understandable. I'd like an upgrade at the back. Pablo Mari looking okay the past few games. Gabriel's had a solid start. Rob Holding, I think, is a decent squad option. I think he gets a bit of unfair criticism. Has his limitations, of course, but he usually turns up when we need him. But at the same time, I wouldn't be trying to need him every single week. So a right-footed centre half. Although, do you know what? I think a little bit too much is made of the whole right-footed, left-footed thing when it comes to defenders. Like, I don't see why Gabriel and Pablo Mari can't play beside each other because they're both left-footed. Like, I mean, they're both in a central role. Surely it doesn't matter as much as, say, playing a right-footed left back and a left-footed right back. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I don't think it's too it's too awkward. So I think two solid additions would be great. Maybe, just maybe, another option in midfield. I don't know what the plan is for Lucas Torreira. Maybe he'd have a future. Can't see it. But after spending big on Party, I don't know if it's feasible to look for another option in midfield. A lot of this is going to depend on who we manage to offload. But yeah, for me, if we can remove three or four from the squad, that would be great. If we could remove five or six, that'd be unbelievable. But that's an awful lot to ask for a January transfer window. And as two solid players, but they've got to be better than what we currently possess. Like I don't want to see signings for the sake of it. I don't want to see like Diego Costa. His name's been mentioned. No more of these temporary signings that will command big wages. They're going to underperform, and then we're stuck with them for a few seasons, and we just can't get rid of them. And then, like we've seen in the past, they're happy to sit there, see out their contract, and cost us a fortune every week. And then it puts a stop to new players coming in. We need improvements on what's available to us. So none of these, thinking short term. So yeah, look, we'll see how we get on. No doubt we're going to be linked with everyone and anyone going, because that's usually the case with Arsenal. We're playing West Brom tomorrow, today being Friday. So as usual, you'll hear me back on again to talk about that one. So look, hopefully we'll have another win under our belts. We'll be talking about 3 from 3, 9 points from 9 available. And then you'll get to hear me back on Arsenal Fan Circle, because that's part of my contractual obligations with them, that every time we get a win, I'm back on. Although, look, I intend on being back on regardless, but don't tell them, because I still want my win bonus. So, again, look, thanks for listening. Happy New Year to everyone, and come on, you Gunners.